Hi, welcome to another episode of Through the Web. Today we're going to talk about updates around AI, Twitter verifications, and central banks. So enjoy this one. It's going to be pretty interesting. Cheers.
How's the week?
It's pretty all right. Although, happy to say that my mum is out of hospital now. She got
Fantastic.
out last night, so that's good. Still a lot of recovery at home and some pain and stuff, but yeah, the worst is behind us. So thanks everyone for the lovely messages. That was really sweet. You know, sometimes you look at the comments of people saying, "Hey, you guys should do this or that," and you don't really think about the good stuff. So that was very encouraging, and yeah, really appreciate it.
The other day I was saying that this new job, essentially over the last 2 decades, that's been created, which is that of a content creator, right? Like before, kind of, you started expanding your team. Essentially, it was just you behind a laptop, and so many creators are like that. And the idea is that once you shut off the laptop, there's no one else around you to cheer you on or be beside you when things are tough and things of that sort. So those comments are what makes you feel that, okay, you know what, whatever you've been doing is not just in futile. There are people who at least
maybe this is a good time to tell a story about early cold fusion. How I almost gave up.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, I haven't heard about that one.
Okay. Well, this would have been.
Actually, I did, because when I interviewed you for my podcast,
I must have said that.
You did. I think I know the story, but please do continue for those who don't.
This must have been maybe 2013, 2014. At this time, I was making the transition from mobile phone reviews and customization and all of that kind of stuff onto things to do with technology documentaries, just that little transition. I was in the middle of it. So my mobile phone reviews tended to be quite grand in the bigger picture of, what Samsung's doing or whatever. And this was at a time when the tech review space was like really hot. You had people that were coming in and, blowing up really quickly because smartphones were, quite new at that stage still, like relatively. It was almost mid-cycle. So it was a lot of competition, and I thought and I felt to myself that I put so much effort into these videos, just a mammoth amount of effort, made sure everything was like, to the T done, creatively and differently to everyone else. Because normally smartphone reviewers would, say, this is the phone, here are the specs, blah, blah, blah. But, mine would be a bit different to that. And, there was this one time very specifically where I got really annoyed because there was this guy who would literally, all he would do would just be put the phones on the screen and then put text and all that kind of stuff. And there was no effort whatsoever in what he was doing. But his videos are getting hundreds of thousands of views, and I was sitting there on 80 or 90K. And I was really down about it. And I remember my sister came in. She's like, "What's wrong? What's happening?" And then I was just saying, I put all this effort into these videos, and these guys come along and they just fart one out and it does so well. And I was getting really, I was like, I just don't think this is worth it. I think I should just stop. And she told me one thing. She was like, you really shouldn't stop, because you should focus on the positive comments and what people are saying. Just look at that. And, I didn't really, believe what she was saying, but then I did actually have a look at the comments, and people were saying, keep going. This is really unique and interesting. So I just decided to keep at it. But at that point, I literally was about to quit because I just felt like, it wasn't worth it. You put so much effort in and nothing happened. So.
Off the record, just maybe a few minutes before we started pressing record, we were talking about that meme of that guy mining. It's exactly that same story here again. If you had quit at that point, you probably wouldn't be where you are today, right? And yes, you did tell a story in the episode where of my podcast that I did, and I think, when was this, 2013 you mentioned? So. Because I remember, so for those who don't know, Dagogo and I met through jamming, essentially through music. We used to play through, just get together with a few friends and play a few songs, cover a few songs for fun. And I think I remember you telling me at that time that you were considering going full time. This was in around that 2011-12 period, right? Were you full time already then? A full-time creator?
If it was 2012, I wouldn't have been.
Right.
So I went full-time 2013.
Okay. So it was before that?
Or around then. Yeah. So it would have. So I graduated 2012 and I worked for a year.
Yes.
So yeah, it was after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So while you were still...
I would have been in uni still at that time.
Still uni.
Yeah.
In terms of when you wanted to quit?
No. So this was when I was full-time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically the first year you got full-time.
Yes.
You were already doubting yourself.
I was like, it's too much work, man. Just go work for a company. That's how it's like. And so for everyone out there, like if you do see those little sparks of people encouraging you online, although I have a feeling it's more rare today. I think people online
encouraging?
I think people online are more vitriolic.
I think the number of people hating has increased, but overall, I think there's still lots of nice comments.
Of course, there will be, but I guess my point was, if you see those comments, pay attention to them. Cause
absolutely.
Sorry, I was just going to say it's so easy to focus on the negative. Apparently, it's actually a evolutionary defense mechanism. So we're always looking out for danger. So those negative comments stick with you, but the positive ones are just let them go. Yeah,
I've got a similar story with my football media company that I run called Plantic, and it was around like the same time, 2014, 2015. It was just like 2 or 3 of us at that time. It was like the 4 co-founders, and one had left at the time, and the other one was kind of MIA. It was just the 2 of us, and at one point it was just me running the entire show for like almost 6 months. And I remember at that point, I was like, you know what, this is just not worth it. I'm doing so many other things with my, like marketing career, and I've just graduated and I've just left my architecture life behind and getting into this new thing. It's just not worth carrying on about football content media stuff. And similar to you, my brother was the one who came and said, you know what, just stick to it. Just see what happens later, and things could get better. Maybe just don't, burn yourself out, but just keep it going, see what happens. And last year we launched a book, and we're doing well and everything. So again, like I think those people around as well are very important. And those comments, again, like these positive comments definitely make a lot of difference. So I would say it's okay to criticize others, and this is something I've told people that if you criticize others, that's fine, but make sure you also put the same energy for things that you actually love as well, just to balance the things out in the world.
But I do think there's 2 kinds of criticism. There's valid criticism, where it's like, you could do this better, coming at you from a position of just trying to help. And then there's the other one where it's like, you're stupid, and it doesn't add any value. We could go on and on about some specific comments, but we are thinking of making a show about just responding to comments, and that could potentially be part of the extended stuff that we're working on this year. So watch out for that. This has been also probably a few weeks out from getting into our new studio. Hopefully we've moved chairs in now.
We've got a couple of chairs in. Maybe we'll just share the post on our Instagram profile story. So check out our Instagram as well, probably posting more stuff there. And also we're also thinking of having a backdrop of the podcast with images from key moments of tech history, and just stylize that entire wall, almost like a museum. Some might say museum of important moments in tech history. So if you're listening in, maybe recommend like what tech moment or revolutionary tech moment should we feature on that wall? Yeah,
so to give you an idea, like Steve Jobs holding up the first iPhone or something like that.
Something like that would be...
it doesn't have to be exactly, but just, things of that significance as well.
That's right. And I think that'll have some deeper meaning as well, and hopefully it'll look nice. We're still kind of playing around. We'll see how we go. Moving on to what we watched this week. Anything interesting on your end, or has it been too busy?
Not much this time, unfortunately. You go first, and then if I can think of anything.
Well, I watched Succession. It's back.
That actually popped into my head last night. I was like, I should really get onto that.
Get onto it, man. Season 4, episode 1 was incredible. The reason why I keep harping on about it is because it really shows a lot of stuff that we talk about on the podcast in terms of the media mogul empire and how the internal stuff work. Like right now, and this is not really a spoiler, but there's a kind of like a merger acquisition kind of situation going on, right? And the tension that builds up between, like, we hear all the stories, that X company bought off Y company, or there's just this whole race between two media companies going on about a certain topic. All the stuff kind of is portrayed, and the acting is just brilliant as well. So again, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but for those interested in the world of media, politics, a little bit of drama as well, I think they'll really, really like it. So yeah, the season 4, which will be its final season as well, I like that too, because I don't want things really being stretched out where there's no value anymore, and it's just the same old thing going back and forth. They're hopefully ending on a high. Because season 3 was really good, and they just announced season 4 with the last one. I was like, okay, it's sad it's gonna end, but I like that it's gonna end. It's weird like that. That's the thing that I watched. But other than that, a Vox video on the Chinese shrinking population.
I saw the thumbnail, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, very interesting video. It's probably common knowledge by now, but for those who don't know, for the first time in 6 decades, the population of China is shrinking, and it's predicted that it could create a crisis there in terms of the demography. So the thing is, not only is China shrinking, but it's also aging. So in the future, it's predicted that China could lose nearly 50% of its population by the year 2100, and it's kind of ringing alarm bells across policymakers in China. And the reason behind this, obviously, for those who don't know, in the 70s they pushed for a one-child policy, and even though that somewhat was effective, right now the reason why, that policy is not there anymore, but the reason why some people are still kind of sticking to one or even no child is because of rising income levels. Sorry, not rising income levels, the other way.
Inflation,
and also the lower income levels as well for a lot of the families and individuals. And because if you're the only child, you're more likely to have to take care of your elderly parents. So that also takes time away from work. They're having hard time to manage between family, work, taking care of their parents. So it's all a big kind of mess at this moment for the majority of the population, and this just trying to figure out as to where to go next. Interesting video, very, very, I guess, concerning for China as well, looking ahead, because if you look at the graph distribution of the age, it generally is supposed to be like a pyramid shape,
but it's upside down.
It's it's like a weird kind of wonky shape, and it's only going to get bloated on the top as years go by.
But I think that's not unique to China. I think a lot of the world in 20 or 30 years will be starting to realize that the same thing will be happening. I think Japan's like a very early leader. Their birth rates are kaput, but I think in a lot of Western nations, it's almost falling below replacement levels. And with the baby boomers starting to all retire in bulk now, like if you look at the demographics waves, the baby boomers is this huge curve that just moved through. But now it's getting to the stage where it's like, what's going to happen with healthcare? Like, as I was talking with my mum today, she was just saying everyone there was elderly, like 70s, 80s. They were all having these problems, and the hospital's just full. And it's just going to keep growing because there's just so many elderly compared to the young. And then when you also think about it economically, who's going to pay the pensions? Like, there has to be young people working to sustain that. So it's just, I think it's going to be an issue that needs to be looked at. It's called the demographic cliff, and I think a lot of places are going to have it. And actually, I was thinking of doing a video on it, so maybe we'll see that. This isn't quite related, but I did think of something I did watch. It was going to be so random.
It's fun.
But a mid-90s talk show it was a panel of men versus like a whole audience, and the men thought that they were God's gift to women, right? So they thought that they were, the best thing on earth, and just saying how good they are and how many women they can get and everything.
So women are God's gift.
No. These men themselves are God's gifts. And they're like, they're the
ego.
I know, but some of the things they said, I cannot repeat. They said horrible things about women, etc. But I was messaging my girlfriend about it, just saying how weird it was and how little things have changed. And I kind of described the situation. She's like, oh, so they're like Andrew Tate. And then I was like, yeah, in a way, kind of. And then we got onto the topic of why is this happening? And then the first thing I said was just central banks. That was my explanation. She's like, how? How does that relate? And then I explained it and she's like, oh, that does make sense. So what I think it is, this is just my theory anyway. Central banks are called serial bubble blowers. So what they do is they blow up bubbles by reducing interest rates. And then every time that bubble blows up, then it crashes. And every crash has been worse than the other one. So in the 2000s, it was like low interest rates that fueled the housing bubble, and then low interest rates again for ages that fueled the current the 2020 bubble, and then that popped and they're starting to pop now. So they're kind of getting bigger and bigger, but each pop kind of just like decimates a class of people. So what this ends up doing is the young men aren't earning enough to be like, I'm not saying that they're rich or anything, but a lot of young men don't have a car, or like they're living still at home because the economic situation isn't conducive to like earning enough to be seen as by women, I guess, as a, how do I put this? Like someone who can provide or is doing well kind of thing. So that's one aspect of it. And then you have social media on the other side, where it turns out that people are interacting more online, more than ever before. So you have a lot of men who would be socially awkward. So that adds on top of that. And then you have Tinder as well, which just reduces everything to looks. So if you're a man that's not financially viable, who isn't good looking and is socially awkward, then you have no options essentially. And what happens is that these people get angry. They kind of talk amongst themselves, and they form these communities like incels and whatever. And then you get someone who comes and says, I can solve all your problems by doing this. And that's Andrew Tate. So that's the way I kind of frame it. Does that make sense? Or?
It does.
Yeah.
I think obviously it's very much theory, and you'll have to look at data essentially to dig deep.
Oh, there is quite strong data. So like if you look at the tracks of, I guess, people who have been in relationships or been single for more than a year, and you can see the year that it ticks up, it's 2008. Like for men and women, but the men are steeper and the women are like that. So there's data points to it. It's not just completely made up, but I think it makes sense, but I obviously haven't done a paper on it or read.
Of course.
Yeah, so that's just a theory.
But I think also the society is moving more to an individualistic one, which reduces dependencies, or at least codependencies, on other human beings, because everything's just so available to oneself. And I think that also pushes people from both sides of the situation.
But the thing is, maybe, but the thing is, if you want to buy a house nowadays, realistically, you need to be a couple. It's like, it actually makes more financial sense than a single person trying to do that.
Yes.
And that's kind of the bedrock of moving on.
And even as a couple, it's so hard to get a house. I think yesterday, again, it's a TikTok that I saw, but there was this guy who was explaining how he's been struggling for the last 7 years. Him and his wife, they went through a lot of hardships in the first few years. They didn't have a job, and then finally they got into something stable, worked their way up. They had kids in the middle, so they really stopped doing everything else, really focused on being like super responsible, and then ended up saving like $40,000 for a down payment for a house. And I think the combined income right now is 120,000, stable jobs. A very nice kind of situation for them to be able to get into that first buying house, right? And the only thing that they could find in their area was this so bad, essentially like a shack of like really torn down area, right? And it's like saying like, is this the dream that I was told?
It's not. That's
and it's the reality for so many people.
Yeah. And guess what caused that inflation in housing prices? Low interest rates. Yeah. I'm telling you, like economies, literally, they cause world wars. They cause like shifts in people's thought patterns. It's actually, if you look at world history, it can be told through like the economy. So, I just thought that was kind of interesting in terms of also like how things haven't changed, but also how they are changing as well in terms of like relationships and relationships between the sexes, especially among young people. So, yeah, it was quite interesting.
Just tying it all to one of the more latest news, which is the 25 basis points hike. Some people are saying that it's the worst decision that could be taken because they're saying that they didn't go too high and they didn't go cut too low, because it's almost like a certain point where it was the worst option of three. What do you think about that?
Well, I think cutting would have been a bad option because it would have been a no confidence vote. It's like, they're panicking and they cut immediately. I think that was said by quite a few commentators. I think leaving it would have been probably the best option, but raising it, I don't think it's that bad. I guess it depends on your interpretation. The markets didn't seem to panic at that. So it seems that the Fed is jawboning. It's like they got confidence, like we're going to tackle inflation. This SVB and this banking crisis isn't that serious. Believe us. I think that's kind of what the message that they're putting out. So I don't really think it's the worst decision ever, but it's probably going to break something still. So that's just the way it is. And I think there's not as much slowing in terms of central bank interest rate rises as we thought. Like when SVB happened, and then when Credit Suisse went under, and then the Europeans raised it, and then the Americans raised it. It's like, okay, so it's just business as usual, I guess. So we'll see what happens here. I think our decision's mid this month. So yeah.
Right. Other than that, I got duped. Scammed this week by the Pope.
Personally scammed you.
The photo really took me out. I thought it was real, but in my defense, the one that I saw was photoshopped with the logo of the jacket. The hand was nice. The glass was also kind of cleaner. And when I was kind of searching for it on Instagram, I didn't see a lot of people sharing it, right? Like not a lot of popular entities sharing that photo, like not Reuters or like any big AP company or anything like that. It was just for this one random account. I think it was an Italian account as well, so I didn't really read the translation either. I was like, oh, that's a really cool photo. And then almost immediately, I went on Twitter, and then like lots of people talking about, this was just a guy playing around, and others kind of took it to the next level and photoshopped it on top. And so much so that that entire photo has now caused Midjourney to stop all free trials of their app. So the CEO and founder David Halls announced that the extraordinary demand and trial abuse is the reason why they're going to halt all free trials for now, and you'll have to pay for Midjourney, which I think is a good idea in the sense that such a tool at this level.
And it's like, imagine, giving trolls this tool is just not a good combination.
And as you mentioned as well, I think you also
I did see it. I saw it on Twitter, and I can't remember what the caption was. It was just like, okay then, or so, or something, like just something very vague. And I was just scrolling past, and I was like, oh, that's crazy. He must have been really cold. And then went past. So I thought it was real as well, but I didn't study it in detail. Right. But it was like, that first impression was that is real, and I just moved on.
And for I said in detail because, again, like I like looking at nice clothes and stuff, and it was almost like that, like a streetwear hype beast kind of jacket that he had on, like a really nice jacket. So I was like, oh, well, like what brand is this? Who made it? Who designed it? Kind of stuff. So I was going in, right? And I just shared it for now, only to research later that there was actually no brand attached to it. So that led me to finding out that it was a fake. Yeah. And but you're right. If you weren't really interested in it, you just look past and like, oh, okay. And then you mentioned to me as well, like after that, you saw a lot of people just making disasters that never happened.
So there was like, it was crazy. I can't remember where it was. Somewhere in the United States. It was like the great earthquake of some state, I can't remember, or some city in the year 2000. And the thing that got me about it is the photos looked like they were from that time period, like the color grading, the grain and everything.
I saw the photos later,
and I was like, this is crazy. Like,
and it looks nice.
Yeah.
It looks so real.
And it's just these are the benign trolls. Like, just wait till someone I don't know. Someone's going to do something really stupid. I think.
And I got access to Runway ML this week as well. I think everyone did. I think they opened it to everyone where you can change any video to so this is the Gen 1 of their product, and you can change any video to any style that you choose to. So you can, I think you mentioned it as well, like, change this video in the style of Monet. I think this is on a previous
style transfer.
Yeah. We were talking about it in like a podcast ages ago. It'll be interesting to see where what we talked about last year about these things and how far it's gotten. That stuff's so cool. But then there's Gen 2 coming out, which will essentially be text to video.
Yeah.
And some people, I think, were also trialing it. And there was this stock image of Will Smith just eating
I saw spaghetti. That. That's gone viral as well.
Yeah.
Because eyes are flying everywhere.
Yeah. But that's like the early stages again. That is the DALL-E 2.
That's the DALL-E 1.
DALL-E 1 of 2022 in video format.
Yeah.
And 6 months from now, it's going to be, just entire movies.
Yeah. So that's I think, I don't know, I find that almost the most fascinating visual thing that AI could ever do, like creating videos from text.
Yes.
Because it has to interpret certain things. I just want to see how it does it. And when that is perfected, I think I'll have such a fun time.
Your videos will just gonna be
it'll be crazy.
Like one video a day now. But other than that, I think we're gonna get a Netflix movie entirely out of AI by next year.
Is that your final?
I mean, it's not a prediction video, but I think an entire AI movie is coming. Whether on Netflix or not sure, but
the thing that makes me not say a year, and this is me just speaking, is it's a lot harder than images, because to stitch the frames together, there's a lot of coherency issues that usually happen with AI. So that might take a little while to iron out. So it could be like 2 to actually have something that's quite usable. So we might get stuff that works like by next year in certain areas, like maybe a 10-second segment looks good, but then when you go longer, it kind of goes a bit nuts. But I think a whole movie, probably 2 years is my prediction. But
I'm thinking like they'll have the foundational stuff done entirely on AI, and then they'll just finesse the parts that look like Will Smith's eyes. They're just walking out. So I think it's coming soon. However,
sorry, it's just the imagery. Like he's like really enjoying that pasta. His eyes are like going crazy.
The one of the eyes comes and slaps Chris Rock on the face.
Oh man!
It almost looks like one of the aliens in Men in Black itself, isn't it?
Someone under the thread they did the alien eraser thing. Is like, he needs one of these.
But you're right. It could be 2 years, because a lot of experts want progress to be halted for AI. So for those who don't know, top AI researchers and tech experts, including the likes of Mr. Elon Musk, taking some time off from his CEO duties on Twitter. Others like Steve Wozniak and many more have called for a pause on giant AI experiments. An open letter says that the current race dynamic in AI is dangerous, and calls for the creation of independent regulators to ensure future systems are safe to deploy. The letter, published by the nonprofit Future of Life Institute, notes that the AI labs are currently locked in an out-of-control race to develop and deploy machine learning systems that no one, not even their creators, can understand, predict, or reliably control. Therefore, we call on AI labs to immediately pause for at least 6 months the training of AI systems more powerful than GPT-4, says the letter. This pause should be public and verifiable, I don't know, through blockchain or not, and include all key actors. If such a pause cannot be enacted quickly, governments should step in and institute a moratorium.
Yeah, this is hard, like for a couple of reasons. I can understand where they're coming from, but to implement it is just going to be crazy. Yeah. Like they can say, all right, OpenAI, you stop your thing. OpenAI may or may not comply, but then there'll be some other company that's like, okay, since they've stopped, we'll do it. So it's cat's out of the bag, I think. It's just going to be so hard, such a logistical nightmare to try and implement something like this. And I don't know, but I do see where they're coming from, because with these large language models and these neural networks, like it's literally baked in that what?
No, just thinking about it.
Yeah. These large language models and these neural networks, like you literally, it's baked in that you don't understand how they're doing what they do. It's like a black box, and you get the result, you get the inputs and the result, but no one knows what's going on inside. So the unpredictability of their behavior when they're this intricate and can get onto the net and do real things, I think it's a little concerning. Like maybe just slow it down a little bit. But Sam Altman, he came out on Twitter, I think it was yesterday or the day before, talking about how some things for the future of AI development is going to be some rules and regulations around this, and external parties checking work that we're doing and stuff like that. So he might be on board with a bit of, maybe it's just posturing and saying stuff, I don't know, but maybe he'll be on board with something where people take a good look at what they're doing, but maybe not too closely that it can be copied.
Yeah.
So, and on the other hand, when you're thinking about governments and stuff, they're just so behind. They're like, does TikTok connect to the Wi-Fi? That's the people that are going to be looking at. They got no idea, absolutely no idea. So, when we talk about regulations, who points them in what direction? Yeah. Anything that someone says, they'll be like, that sounds good. I don't know. So,
and they'll appoint Elon Musk to regulate this, and then God knows what's going to happen.
Do the government like Elon Musk? I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, they have built some of his projects out. They have given him money for some of his projects.
Oh, Tesla back in the recession.
So, but jokes aside, you're right. I think it is a bit concerning. I think back to the time when we thought Lambda was conscious. That conscious Lambda is nothing compared to what this feels like, and that's how far all this has happened. And how quickly all this has happened over the last few months. And I think with the pause in it of itself, I personally think it's needed in some ways, because again, like looking at the Pope photo, and we are people who are generally in the know, and we're still getting duped. Imagine people who have no idea what's happening. They're probably talking about, look at that Pope jacket, maybe next week.
Imagine the Pope comes out
wearing one. Yeah, who knows? But I think the society needs to catch up, and also how things are going to really impact individuals' jobs. It's going to crazy.
Yeah, it's when you say, just a spark of something came into my mind when you said society has to catch up. I think if this happened in 1990, everyone will be on the same page. They'll be like, oh, this is happening, blah, blah, blah. But because everyone's in such little different pockets of everything on the internet, no one's really got the full picture yet. It just seems like, the tech community knows that this is coming crazy fast. And look at all these things it can do. And then there's people slightly outside of that which have heard of it and kind of know. And then the further and further away you get, it's just like, that chatbot thing, or what's that, So there's just people, like there's a whole slope of different like acknowledgement of what's happening. And to get everyone on the same page, what has to happen? Does President Biden have to come out and say, okay, this is the dangers, blah, blah, blah. Like there's no person to reach everyone. It's just, so it's hard, like even on that aspect of things, getting everyone to realize what's happening.
But I think this is, we saw it with during the pandemic as well. Again, there was no unanimous kind of, at least bipartisan understanding of what it does and what it is. So I think you're right in that level, that it'll be very hard to get the message across to every single pocket. But I think, having said that, this is getting more traction than anything else that I've seen recently in terms of news, people talking about it, the impact it's actually going to have. And because when people saying it'll impact your job, I think that gets people kind of sitting straight in the chair, like, what do you mean? Like, what? Prior to this, like, everything's fine. The thing's talking to itself, like, who cares? But no, it's going to take a job in 5 years. Like, oh shit, what do I need to do? Right? So I think that's probably the angle.
You don't want to be on a loudspeaker being like, all right, everybody, it's coming for you. It's coming for you. Take your job.
I don't think I need to do that. I think OpenAI or like GPT-4 is already plotting it. They're already hiring those dogs that we saw. Dynamics. From Boston Dynamics. They probably got this whole army out with the loudspeaker. That's
what they did in China.
With the loudspeaker on his back, just taped around. Instead, they'll probably hire some people from Fiverr to do it. And it's already...
No, but like seriously, how is this going to play out? Say the pause does not happen. Mm-hmm. Say that doesn't happen. Then we're just going to suddenly have people rock up at work, and then there's this new department that's there that's just like AI whisperers and what do they call them? Prompt engineers that are just there to supervise the transition of ChatGPT. And then they'll be like, what's this? What happened? And that will just be everywhere. Like, I don't know if you heard about the lawyer that used ChatGPT as a
I
law
briefly
case.
heard about it. Do you mind?
Yeah. This was in India. It was like I don't really know the details, but essentially he used ChatGPT to, I don't really know the details, but like finalize something.
Sure.
But yeah, so it's kind of getting up there, you know. So
no, I really don't know will stop them, because the article that I was reading also said that the letter is like unlikely to have an effect on the AI research, because Google and Microsoft are rushing to deploy new products. But it is a sign of growing opposition to this, ship it now and fix it later approach, an opposition that could potentially make its way into the political domain for consideration by legislators. So I think, you're right that it's only when Biden comes out and or like political leaders come out and talk about this will people start.
Yeah, because there's been like, seriously. Have you heard any politician talk about this anywhere in the world? No, that's the thing. And it's steamrolling. It's picking up steam. So yeah, I think that's an area that needs to be looked at. I don't know who's going to talk to it. I don't know who's going to make that jump from the tech community into politics, but someone has to start saying something, at least start the discussion, because there's people sleeping here and, and there are reports coming out saying how many jobs are going to get replaced or lost through this whole revolution. Who was it? One of the major banks.
JP Morgan.
Yeah. I think it was 300 million jobs they said would be affected. And
this is just an estimate. It could
that's with the stuff happening now.
Yeah.
GPT-5. So it's going to be quite fascinating to think what's going to happen. But even beyond that, what would that future look like? There's like two roads we can go down, where everyone's like, walking around like, what do I do? And the other one is just this utopia where we get grapes fed to us by robotic hands because all the labor is done, so no one needs to work. Right. But how do we decide where to go?
What is the utopia essentially?
So this is a huge question. It's like from the human soul, like what do we do? Like if we have nothing to work for, what's the purpose? But leaving that aside, how is it structured? I would say that we would have to have there'll have to be a huge bunch of scientific breakthroughs that happen where it's just all this, I don't know, all medicine and production is done by robots, like new drug discoveries and whatever. So everyone's like really healthy, just take one pill and live 1,000 years. But aside from that, like in terms of the work that we do, like legal stuff, that would just be all facilitated automatically, instantly. There's no real disputes between people because it's just like you look at the code and you can figure it out that way. Or I don't know, it's a black box, so I don't know. But even it's actually really complicated when I'm thinking about this. But even economically, though, I know that they can do probably a better job than central banks. That's all I'm going to say. Because Soviet Union, they tried to essentially plan like a command and planned economy where they had as much data, all these experts from all these different fields looking at all the data points and everything and try to balance the economy as best that they could. But obviously the data was imperfect and it didn't really work. But with AI, we have it has so much bandwidth for data that you could probably balance an economy relatively well, better than we're doing with humans pulling a few levers. So I think that could work out better. But I don't know. I really have to think about that question to come up with a good answer because like there's so many different aspects to even get started. And I've had 1 hour of sleep, so I'm not.
I think somebody soon will also say that AI is their god. I think an AI religion has probably happened already. I think an AI religion is on its way as well. But I think the utopia essentially should really be looking at making lives better, right? For like eradicating hunger, poverty, all that kind of stuff. And that says it. That has the question: like, if you have no jobs to do, then you're just waking up, having avocado toasts in the morning, and I don't know, just making content, playing soccer, watching others
do
like
stuff. One long holiday.
Yeah, one long holiday forever. So and everything's just done for you.
Yeah.
Like GPT has found out a way that you have universal basic income that makes money, I don't know, just get print without affecting.
We don't even need money. It's just like everything's produced No, but it's like everything's produced so extremely cheaply that the amount of resources we need is just minimal.
Yeah.
So it's just everyone has everything that they need, and there's no want out of anyone. So what happens? What happens to the person who has drive, who wants to do something and create, like to, I don't know, start a company or whatever? It's just there's no point.
And that goes back to the primal questions, like, you know, there's some elements within humans that they want to explore, do stuff, be curious. Where do they go?
But another factor is when this is starting to happen, when we start entering this transition point, it will be different in different nations, right? So you have some nations that are left behind, you know, they're only just starting to get into the internet age, but then you have another nation where it's like, you know, the utopia is here, like resources are not
and
needed.
That defines the class again.
Yeah.
In terms of
so maybe we'll have like non-AI tourists, where it's like they want to get away from chilling at the beach all day, so they fly to a country that people still work. I don't know. Interesting to think about.
One thing you mentioned as we were talking was, would people have reacted any differently if this news came out in the 90s? And I was just thinking about it as you were answering. I don't think they would, because if this came out in 2000, 2010s, 1990s, maybe 60s, 70s, you know, maybe the consciousness or understanding of what artificial systems could really do had reached its peak. But I think mid 1900s, even if you had introduced something like this versus now, I don't think it would have been much different in terms of people's reactions.
Sorry, what I meant by that was the media landscape. So in the 90s, it was like you had like 4 central channels, like news outlets or whatever. Everyone was on the same page. When a big event happened, everyone knew what it was. But I'm saying now all the networks online and everything are so split.
No, I get that. But that made me think, if this came out in the 90s or 80s or 70s, would people really be reacting any differently to what they're reacting now? Because the exponential arrival of this technology between a year ago to where we are versus in early 90s to, you know, whenever they would have found out about this, I don't think it would have been much different. Like you're in the 90s, say, you know, you're still, you've got those old, because that concept of artificial intelligence was still there.
Yeah.
So the idea that this computer could be a being and be capable of making decisions, and here you go, in the next 6 months is going to come out, and you've got, you know, the top tech experts of the 90s saying that no, we need to pause a little bit more because it's getting too powerful. Like people reacting to that they would be writing stories about it in the 80s, right? Isaac Asimov would be, I think only Isaac Asimov wouldn't be surprised. He'd be like, yep.
So I have to verify this, but I saw a guy who was a computer scientist in the 70s where he wrote a handwritten paper, like it was like it typed out on a typewriter, talking about what he thought the future would be. And he said, it's very archaic to type in commands to a computer. The last interface will be language. So he was on it, but I have to verify if that's true or not. Yeah. But I think some people saw this coming, but it's just obviously with neural networks, the thing that made them work is huge amounts of data and computing power, which we didn't get till the 2010s. So it was kind of always inevitable. That's actually a good point. It was actually always inevitable, but it's just now the conditions are right for it to actually happen. So maybe there's something to that, because as long as we had computers, people thought they could probably do this. So
exactly, and it'll be interesting to see what was the earliest version of people talking about the computers or a machine having its own consciousness.
Oh, conscious? I don't know about that, but I know that the fact of machines thinking is quite ancient. I think that was from the 50s and 60s even. They were thinking about it. Neural networks were invented in the 60s. So, it's crazy.
We'll change a little bit. It's still within the same realm of one man connecting all this stuff, and that's Elon Musk. Because I have some Twitter updates. He announced, I think early this week, that only verified subscribers will have posts recommended to other users and only be allowed to vote in polls. This came with a lot of backlash. He said, the only realistic way to address advanced AI bot swarms taking over is the reason why he has these changes on. It is otherwise a hopeless losing battle. Voting in polls will also require verification for the same reason. However, a day later, Twitter reversed that course on plans to limit presence for its For You timeline to paying users only, with Elon Musk claiming that he forgot to mention that other users will also be visible for the individual users.
Right.
So the whole verification stuff, it just seems like there's going to be a lot more confusion as more and more people are going to start getting that. Again, for society to catch up, because previously it'd be like, oh, it's a verified check that's coming from a verified source, especially on Twitter. Most of them used to be like journalists, right? But now, with everyone having that, a single screenshot of it going viral would mean that people will be buying that more. So again, society has a little bit of catching up to do in understanding what these verification checks really mean.
Not society. Twitter's actually quite a small user base. It's just
no, but the thing is, the Twitter user base is small, but the impact of Twitter is actually way beyond Twitter itself. Okay. So, for example, you see a lot of screenshots on Facebook, on Reddit, on Instagram, and so forth.
Yeah, it's a tweet that brought down SVB. So
yeah,
yeah. But anyway, I think that Elon has to get his stuff sorted out. He needs to. I don't know. Like, is there an internal struggle with these decisions? Because it doesn't seem very smooth.
Because there's also this other news that came out with Twitter. Because he told apparently that to his employees that the social network is currently valued at about $20 billion US, which is at least 20, almost more than half of what he paid for, which was $44 billion last October, according to the New York Times and the Information. Who the internal email reported its purpose was to announce a new stock compensation program, but included a warning from Musk that Twitter remained in a pretty bad financial position and had even briefly been 4 months away from running out of money. So, he's saying that this is happening, this is actually struggling. He also suggested that radical changes at the company, such as mass layoffs and cost cuttings, were necessary to avoid bankruptcy and streamline operations. Twitter is being reshaped rapidly, Musk wrote, and he said that the platform should now be viewed as an inverse startup. So, shut down? That's the exact opposite of an inverse startup. I mean, exact opposite of a startup, right? But also another report came out that there was like a VIP list of celebrities of around 35 people who were getting boosted visibility, who were getting more reach than others. But it was a very mix of high-profile figures. It had Joe Biden, and then it had Mr. Beast, it had LeBron James, it had Ben Shapiro, it had AOC, it had himself. So I found that interesting as well, because I think they were probably testing something with it to see that, okay, if we let all algorithms just loose, how do these big individual entities just work in the mass? And I think that was a way to test it out. But it seems like that got a lot of negative reviews negative news, because the whole idea that Twitter should be for everyone to be treated equally, and this was whole for free speech and stuff like that. That's because that stuff I'm sure all other social media companies do as well, just in the background. But the fact that he bought Twitter for free speech and that, and then still has these kind of things going on, is what is cause for concern.
Yeah, I think it's still a bit of a clown show at the moment, unfortunately. And my Twitter feed is kind of getting a bit bizarre.
So you got the Twitter Blue subscription a few weeks ago, a week ago?
A week ago, yeah.
Okay, so how's your experience been?
Roughly the same, but my feed has gotten a bit weird, as I was saying. Like, lots of unrelated stuff, some violence I've been seeing.
I've been seeing a lot of violence as well. A lot of violence.
And it's kind of like, why is this happening? Yeah. I don't know if I could say it, but I don't know if you heard about that guy in Starbucks in Canada.
Yeah, I just saw the news this morning. It's just horrible.
Yeah, like I was scrolling and I literally saw the event.
The video?
Yes.
That is incredible. It's like, what's that? World hip hop star or something?
World star, but not just that. Like, what's the other one? The hip hop star. Yeah, no, there was another, one of those snuff sites or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like,
that is just with no warning or like
nothing, no graphic warning, and then like people were saying like, Elon, you got to put like a thing where, but also the crazy thing about that video is like some kid was filming it and then like he turned the camera around, there was like the body there, and it was like, oh man, this is crazy, someone just died.
That is dystopian as hell.
And it's like, I don't know what to think about that. Sad. Very sad. But so a lot of violence, a lot of unrelated stuff, and it's making my experience not as good. I don't think that has anything to do with the verification, but it's just a coincidence.
The profile that posted that video, was that verified?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm actually not sure.
Likely it would be, I'm assuming, because again, I think they're testing out only verifications to be showing on verified profiles.
Right, maybe.
So,
but so it's unfortunately seeming a little less fun to use. And it never was fun, I'd say, but it seemed a lot more put together and coherent and peaceful.
Yeah.
And now it's just not so much. So
a reflection of humanity?
No, let's not go that far.
It's not that bad. Yeah. But if we move on to the other app that's making the news.
TikTok.
Yeah, looks like it's gonna get banned. So you were right all along, Dagogo.
Well, yes, that. Thank you. No, no, but I heard Ron Paul came out and said he's opposed to it because it goes against
U.S. values.
Yeah, not his values.
No, U.S.
Oh yes, some of the. I think he said his.
Whose values?
No, yeah, some of the U.S. values, etc. And it seems like maybe other politicians will be going with him, but. I don't know. I think that there's still strong enough impetus to ban it regardless of evidence. I think it's just, China, that big risk of national security is enough to clear any due process. So that's just my opinion. I think that's how the government seems to be behaving. Yeah. So, yeah.
Somebody commented on the last video that, people seem to have forgotten that Hawaii was also on the same
Hawaii,
situation. Yeah,
they were huge, like network infrastructure,
exactly. So that didn't matter to the US. So same thing. It wouldn't matter here as well. And I think looking at that comment, that also made me think. You know what? You're probably right. But also, just the reactions to the whole event, because I think we filmed the day after. But as things kind of settled down a bit, it was interesting to see the different parties reacting to this differently. If you go on TikTok, so much pro TikTok stuff. And I don't know if that's, again, me being on TikTok, talking generally on the idea that, I like TikTok. That's why I've been seeing that kind of stuff. Or if they were hot king, some of that stuff up there. I think that's the term that Verge used. But also the CEO himself, Mr. Chu, he started posting a lot on TikTok recently, which again tells you that. But
I think Rand Paul made a very interesting point. He said, if you want to lose the next election, if Republicans want to lose the next election, then ban TikTok. And, that could give them pause because
so true.
Huge number of young people on that platform. And then all they'll think about is like, these are the guys that made me lose my favorite app.
Yeah.
And I think that's enough to give, that party like,
exactly.
Hang on, maybe. So, I think there's a lot of different moving parts, but I'm still tilting towards it's gonna get axed.
Yeah, because India banned TikTok in 2020 actually, because they had a dispute with China, and they banned the app entirely, citing a law that allows the government to block websites and apps in the interest of the country's integrity. Now, India's actions are, were a useful proxy for the US, because when they banned it in India, they also had around roughly 150 million active users at that time per month. So it's not too different from what US has. So again, this is working as like, okay, what has India done since? And it seems like they have been okay in the sense that, they're doing just fine without TikTok, but other companies definitely swooped in. So it's less about, again, the social media algorithm, all that challenges stuff that they were throwing out at him, and it's entirely the fact that there's a potential connection to China. Nothing, all of the other 3.5 hours of questioning of, that person died because of that challenge, and this happened because, it's spying on that person, and it's showing up everything. Did you see that thing about the pupil dilation question that they had? So there's this report apparently that TikTok uses your camera to see how your eyes move, and also that if your pupils are dilated, because if you see something fun and happy, you're supposed to, your eyes will light up. And so apparently there's a tracker that the app uses to see, and then it'll feed you stuff based on that. I'm surprised you're hearing it for the first time. It's
but if that is true, that's insane. But
no, so he denied it straight away. It's like, no, that's not true. But that was something I heard about Facebook as well. I heard about Instagram as well. So again, these are irrelevant to the whole Congress that they had, a hearing that they had. So ultimately, I think going back to the point that you made earlier in a few episodes before, is that it's entirely about national security. It just seems like it is entirely about national security. And I guess it'll all come down to how far TikTok's willing to cut all their ties with China, or at least their operations in the US in comparison to how they've been running in the past. If they're able to do it in the idea that these politicians and congressmen and congresswomen are okay with it, I think that's the only way that they can save themselves being in the US. And what if they do go, I don't know what's going to happen next, because the comments were funny. It's like, I'm not moving to YouTube Shorts. There's no way I'm going to YouTube Shorts, because there's actually a running joke on TikTok.
Right, about how bad YouTube Shorts are.
Yeah, it's essentially, you see like something funny happening, like something not funny, like something stupid happening. It's like, oh, commenters on YouTube Shorts, like that's, or like your usual YouTube Shorts viewers, like that's
interesting.
Yeah, it's like a whole thing. Like like TikTok is like the king of this kind of content, and then YouTube Shorts like the Internet Explorer that picks up on it like months later or something like that. And it's true. I've as a user of all these different platforms, I've seen something on TikTok ages ago, only for it to show up on like Instagram like 3, 4, 6 months later, and people are just raving on, oh, this is funny. Right. So it does seem like I don't think they'll directly get a lot of automatic users directly anyway, but yeah, we'll see what happens with this whole thing.
Yeah.
Actually, don't have much other topics.
Yeah, I'm kind of
I can see it in your I can see it in your pupil's dilation that you are tired. It's shrinking. But look, I'll end with one last thing, one last story, that Disney is now out of the Metaverse.
Oh, shock horror.
The roughly 50-person strong team that they had going, I think in the early 2020, they've been cut from the company's first round of layoffs as part of a wider layoff that they're predicting of 7,000 employees that's supposed to happen in the coming months. But this was the first team to go. It announced its Metaverse ambition to the employees last February, and that was 4 months after Facebook renamed itself to Meta. And obviously at that time, people were just harping on, just quickly make that swift shift. As you're seeing people do with ChatGPT and GPT-4, and everywhere you see is just GPT-4 is integrated, and that's all you need to sell things now apparently. But I just want to read a quote from last year when they announced that they were opening up Metaverse, right? So the then CEO of Disney, Bob Chapek, he said that for nearly 100 years, our company has defined and redefined entertainment by leveraging technology to bring stories to life in deeper and more impactful ways. Today we have an opportunity to connect to those universes and create an entirely new paradigm of how audiences experience and engage with the stories. This is the so-called Metaverse. So this was his statement when they opened up, their ambition to do it. A year and a half later, gone. This again, I think, is an indicator of what's happening with the Metaverse.
It's pretty funny. It's kind of like the hype things. Like all of these were like equal at one time. It's like Metaverse, Web3, AI, and then AI is like taken off. And then,
but AI wasn't even in the conversation as much last year. AI was nowhere near.
Come on, yes it was. Not at the same hype cycle, but if you're looking at the research papers and what people were saying around then,
I think people who were into it, like yourselves, people who have been covering the stories, people who are truly into the world of tech, they knew that, okay, something's brewing, right? But then for the wider community of people, for them, it was only just crypto, NFTs.
No, but sometimes you would hear people just chuck in AI as a buzzword when it just was some kind of, search engine or
Yeah, true. I mean, they would say machine learning
Yeah.
and artificial
It's like
intelligence.
AI powered like
Exactly.
TV
True.
or like AI powered.
But that it almost feels like ADBC kind of situation, as in before Christ and Anno Domino. The whole calendar thing, but it does feel like that now that we've reached that inflection point where pre-Chat GPT and post-Chat GPT, the way people view AI is completely, at least that's what happened to me. Like the way I've been viewing AI and ML and all that kind of stuff.
Ooh, sorry. This is maybe we'll just end off on this little story. But I watched a pretty interesting video from Jubilee. Did you see it?
Which one? Sorry.
Jubilee.
Oh, I saw the link that you sent me. I haven't seen the video, but it's on mine.
So essentially, Jubilee has this series where it's like the odd one out or whatever. So it's where like there's a group of people and they have to guess who's the imposter essentially. So one of them, they had a group of what's a good example? Oh, like a group. What?
No. I was saying
like I don't know. Say all of them are doctors or something, and there's one that's not a doctor.
I think the one I saw was like one was a fake hip hop fan, and everyone was a proper fan. They have to find out which one.
Yeah, so they ask a bunch of questions, everyone answers, and then they
have a lot of different shows as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See who's the mole essentially. So in this one, they had I think it was 6 humans versus 1 AI, and it was all chat based. So the host and the program runner would ask the question, and then everyone would answer. And so they went through all of these different rounds. So basically what happens is people, after each round, they have to guess who's the loser, and then they get eliminated, and then it was 5, and then the next person gets eliminated, keeps them going until they reach, I think, 3 or 4, and then they ask, do you want to keep playing, or like, do you think the mole's still here or whatever? So in this one, they eliminated 4 people, so it was down to the final 3, 2 humans and the AI, and then they did guess the AI eventually. But the thing was, at the end when they asked everyone who did you think was the AI, they said all these different names and no one guessed the AI. And then when the host said, oh, it was actually this name, which they just gave the AI, like Josh or whatever, then everyone's like, yeah, I knew it. Oh, yeah. So like, I think it was interesting because it was ChatGPT is already at that level where it's basically impossible to tell. Like everything that they were talking about, like, oh, this response was a bit too short, or this response was like this or that. That was the humans doing it, so that no one could actually tell. So I think it's just a testament to how far we've come, because I don't know if you remember chatbots from a while back, you'd ask questions and 3 sentences in it'll be like off tangent, and not like it was nowhere near like fooling you into thinking it's a human. But this is just
and that was the case for such a long time as well. And that's why I was saying that what if this came out in the 90s or the early 2000s? I don't think the reaction to it would be the same, if not very similar. So,
but I think it is a real human concept, like a computer that can talk to you like we can. I think that's pretty old as soon as computers were invented, essentially. But anyway, I think that wraps up today's episode. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you had a good one, and we'll catch you later. See ya.